What's up everyone, and thank you for stopping by the channel. Today's project is the Shindaiwa trimmer, and the problem is that it starts and runs, but it doesn't seem to want to get up to full speed. So using it takes a lot longer than it's supposed to. Let's take a good look at it, find out what's wrong with it, and hopefully we can fix it. In this video, we try and repair this trimmer. However, it may not be the exact repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. In a previous video, we fixed a fuel leak that put this engine in a dangerous situation. The mixed gas caused dirt and grass to cling to the engine, potentially causing it to overheat. After restarting the engine, it ran, but it never really got up to full speed. Now the air filter is in great shape and it's not wet with fuel, so there's plenty of air getting into the engine. Another reason why your engine wouldn't get up to full speed is a clogged spark arrestor screen. But I did check the one on this one and it wasn't clogged, so the next suspect, of course, is the carburetor. After removing the air filter base, remove the carburetor from the engine and disconnect the throttle cable. Before removing the fuel lines, press the primer bulb a few times just to see which fuel line is the return line. In this case, it's the line coming out of the side of the carburetor. After that, remove the fuel lines. Instead of my normal routine of tearing into the carb and cleaning it and rebuilding it, I'm going to do what a lot of people are suggesting. We're simply going to replace it with a non-original equipment carburetor from a large online store. Now, before buying a new carburetor, look over the old one and take some pictures of it. That way you can compare it to the one online. Now, the one I bought said would work on this particular model, but after getting in the mail, I compared the two and they're close, but they're not perfect. The biggest difference is the missing impulse hole on the mounting surface of the new carburetor. Now, I was very close to returning it just because the hole was gone. The other part was the throttle cable anchors were different, but I think I can deal with it. Everything else seemed to be okay though. Now, there was another small difference, which is an adjustment screw on the side of the new carburetor. Also, if you look at the carburetor mounting surface, you can see a hole where it lines up with the old carburetor. Now, the impulses help draw fuel from the tank and into the carburetor, so I'm not really sure how the new carburetor is supposed to pump fuel from the tank. Just out of curiosity, I did check to see how deep the hole was, just in case I needed to drill the hole myself, but I was quite surprised to see that it almost goes through the other side of the carburetor. After doing some research, I did discover that there's a hole in the throat of the new carburetor and not in the old one, and that's how it's getting an impulse signal to work the pump. Now, before installing the new carburetor, we need to deal with the throttle cable anchor. The old carburetor has a small hole at the top which attaches to a Z-band on the end of the cable. Now, the new carburetor has a pivoting anchor that needs a different type of throttle cable, but I think we can remove the retaining clip and the pivot altogether and get rid of it, leaving us with a hole like the one in the old carburetor. Unfortunately, after removing it, we're left with a hole that's several times larger than what we need. The only solution is to possibly glue in a plastic or brass sleeve to get it closer to the correct size, but for testing purposes, we can still install the carburetor and make sure it works like it should. Right after installing the fuel lines, press the primer bulb a few times to make sure it's pulling fuel from the tank and it's filling the bulb up. If the fuel doesn't fill the primer bulb, it's very unlikely that the engine will start. Now, before installing the top cover, I want to try starting the engine and seeing if the throttle linkage is working like it's supposed to. Never run the engine for too long without the top cover on, as it helps direct air over the engine and keeps it from overheating. If you don't recall from the previous video, the engine sounded like it was running at about 80% and its throttle response was a little bit slower. Now it seems to be a whole lot faster and a whole lot more responsive. Even though the carburetor is designed just a little bit differently than the original one, it seems to work just the same. Even though I did have to make it work, it's still a good investment. So my question is, would you replace a carburetor if your trimmer wouldn't get up to full speed, or would you take it in for service? Would you be comfortable trying it yourself or pass it on to a professional? I know what I would do, but I'm more curious about your answer. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please feel free to ask any questions, and I hope to see you again in the next video.